Weekly Prologue. Is karma destiny? Do you have to choose between living a creative life and making a living? Many talented creators are confronted with the eternal struggle between making art and earning a good living wage. Hi, I'm Bob Mack, and this is The Interval. Watch to find out how this episode's featured artist found inspiration embracing a unique heritage that traces back to the world's most authoritarian and secretive country, North Korea, for making rock and roll music his life's work. He's a songwriter, producer, and music teacher. He's been a featured artist on XPN and a WMMR New Artist to Watch. He packs a room at places like 118 North and Wayne and will be on the stage twice at the massive Bethlehem, PA Summer Musik Fest. So the bigger mystery here is, if you love great homegrown rock and roll, how come you don't know about Judah Kim yet? Judah Kim, welcome to The Interval.
Hello.
It's great to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, Bob. Thank you.
You know, you being here came from me seeing you at 118 North a few weeks ago. And, I go there fairly often, just a place to, I love music, right?
Yeah.
And it's good to relax and just discover what I can discover. I don't expect much. It's all good. But every once in a while, I encounter something that just makes me stop, check it out, and really dive deeper. And you're one of those artists.
Oh, man, thank you.
It was a kind of a night where, like typical, you're in a full bar, and it was different. Well, a lot of times the Interval has artists from the area, and they also bring their own, coterie of family and friends and all that. And clearly that was one of those nights. A lot of people I didn't recognize and know, and everyone seemed to know each other. So that was all brought together. But, everyone's just, because they know each other, are very casual. And they're usually talking during the performance of the artist, stuff like that. Which got to be annoying, but it's part of the gig. But when you got on stage and opened up with your first song, I would say within 3 bars, that place was quiet. It was silence, getting surging, moving, drifting towards you and the microphone and the great band that you had with you.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I guess that opening song was Confetti.
Confetti, yeah.
Yeah. That was just a great song.
Thank you.
And I was impressed because your vocalization is very polished. Your phrasing, your lyricism works so well with the way your melody lines are written. So you really put a lot of time, energy, and not only to your writing but to your performance. And I was just reminded of like Neil Finn from Crowded House, or even like Jeff Buckley. Confetti to me was like a Jeff Buckley song. So that was super cool. So I gotta ask. I'm glad I discovered you late, but you're getting to know you a little bit. You've been at this for quite some time.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. As long as I can remember, I was a singer, and so that comes from my dad's dad, who lived in like a small village in North Korea. And when I tell this, it sounds like a fairy tale. Like they were all like farmers and workers, and he was so good that he would always play and kind of distract everyone. And then like the leader of the town like didn't really like him so much, and but he was so passionate about it that he eventually like left the family to pursue that, and we haven't heard from him since. Very little is known about him, especially since it's like North Korea, and God knows where he went. Maybe he started another family, and I have like half brothers and cousins out there that I don't know about. And then I guess it sort of skipped my dad a little bit. I mean, he always loved me. He loved music, and he was more into Christianity and God, and that was his way of being his own individual. And let me explain, because his father was an individual in that, like, he didn't want to be a farmer. He like left to pursue music. And then my dad, when he came to America, I remember growing up, as far back as I can remember, we went to black churches growing up. Probably until I was about like 10 or so. I think that was because he loved it. He loved it. His spirituality is not mine, but he wanted to be close to God so much that he didn't care about like the social aspect of church or anything like that, or like he just wanted to be where he felt the realest gospel was. So he took us there, and he made us grow up there. And I think that was his way of expressing like his own individuality. And for me, I think growing up and then we grew up in the suburbs. So growing up in the suburbs as an Asian American, you feel different for obvious reasons, I think, and
Sure.
Music was kind of like a way to express that individualism too, because I always had it in me. I've always felt that I could sing, and I played a lot of instruments growing up, and choir, orchestra, band, all that stuff, and discovering music through my brothers early was like U2 and the Rolling Stones. I remember listening to records with them, and the Beatles too.
So your brothers were very influential in what you listened to.
Absolutely, and
so, where are you in the pecking order?
I am the fourth son. I have to think, because I have a big family. I have 4 brothers and 3 sisters.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm the 7th child and the 4th son.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So that we always had band equipment in the house, in the garage, because my 2 older brothers played in bands, and so it wasn't until about like I want to say 13 or so that I picked up the guitar. That was like right around the time when we were going to like contemporary Korean churches, and guitars started showing up.
So there was a lot
in
of
churches.
singing, and
there was a lot of that going on, right?
When your dad was going to the black churches, was it also gospel and all
There
that
was
kind
certainly that too, but I think I was too young to actually like pick up an instrument and say, "Hey, I can."
Yeah, but
sing
you were
to
listening
that
to it,
stuff.
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I think that's where the whole U2 influence kind of stuck too, because they were very much about God and all of that. I don't identify myself as a Christian today necessarily, but I'm not anti at all. I sort of carry that in me, is what I'm saying. It's like that kind of that vibe, if you will.
Sure.
So anyway, it was right around 13 or so when we were going to now more Korean churches, and they had like guitars and stuff, and I started getting curious about it because my brothers always had guitars around the house. And then I strummed my first chords, and I was like, all right, this is it. And he had a Beatles book with all the songs and the chord charts, and I just tried to learn as much as I could from that. And then
the Beatles are so compelling. Right?
Yeah,
Just try it.
yeah. And then that was also around the time when like Green Day and Nirvana started really taking off,
Okay.
and those songs were easy enough where I felt like I could play them too. And being a bored suburban kid, it was just like, okay, all summer long I would just play and get really good, and I started forming my first bands then. And
were you singing in those first bands?
I was, yeah.
So you were singing from like right from the beginning. And just started singing on your own, and I guess your brothers probably gave you a lot of critical feedback.
Well, yeah, they didn't like that I would turn the amps up and the distortion pedals up so much, because I was playing a lot of grunge and
Okay.
they were kind of more into the Police and like still very much like U2 and all that.
Right.
But I was into the music of the time, so I really wanted to like rock out, if you will. So that definitely changed me. And then exploring more of their like record collections and getting in, and as more music just started coming out of Britain, I mean, then it was like Oasis and Blur. That whole Britpop scene really turned my head not away from the American thing, but it was like, okay, well, this is maybe how I can stand out and be an individual again, like to lean into that. And
Park Life is such a great album.
Their whole catalog is insane. I love Blur so much, and everything that came out in that era. And then I guess it was like Radiohead too. It was, man, and that changed me to sort of think another way about music too. So the Bends, that record was definitely shaped how I write and sing. So
okay, so when you start write your own, well, you had a band or a couple bands, and did you end up in L.A.?
I was in it. That's actually where I formed my first.
How did you get to L.A.?
Professional band.
And I think I remember you also saying you went to Berkeley.
I did. I went to
College?
Berkeley in Boston, and then I got a job as an intern at a studio in L.A.
Okay.
And did a lot of like.
Is that related to your Berkeley education?
Yes.
Okay.
So through Berkeley, I got an internship at a studio in LA.
Nice.
And I did a lot of post-production work. I remember doing some commercials and like ABC's Extreme Makeover and shows like that.
Okay.
And, for me, it was cool, but it was also like, all right, I'm like 22 years old, I don't want to sit behind a desk, especially in Los Angeles. You know, it's beautiful out, and there's all this music going on. So when my younger brother came out, we started the first band, Stone Throne, and we made some records, and we played LA, and eventually came back to Philly and did some really cool shit there.
What kind of music were you playing at Stone Throne? Was it more along the grunge type of hard rock? Sounds like a hard rock maybe.
I don't want to call it grunge necessarily, but at that time we were really into Muse, which was a really
and they were
big
just
thing for
probably
us.
coming really big at that time.
Muse didn't start actually taking, in my eyes, they didn't start really blowing up until that song like Uprising, which didn't come out to like 2015, 14? Yeah. But for me, I was always a fan earlier of like even their first record, which came out in '99.
Okay.
Yeah, those early records are something else. I mean, they were like Radiohead, but more like classical and metal, if you will. They were really, really cool. And I still really love Muse. So
Instrumentation is important. Arrangement's important to what you do. So that's where you kind of got your chops for getting the art of arrangement down through that studio work and, of course, Berkeley education.
Yeah. I mean, going back to like the days where I'd be tinkering around in the garage with my brother's gear. We had it was like the era of 4-tracks too.
Okay.
Like I had a Tascam 4-track and always experimented that way.
Nice.
So then I felt like, okay, well I can hear all this stuff in my head. I'll play the drums, and then I can play the bass, and then I figured out how to do it that way.
Right. So then, how did you end up back in Philadelphia? Is it just more like we are done with LA and here we go?
It feels like an eternity ago. But there were probably a myriad of reasons. But I think it was kind of a big fish in a smaller pond thing that sort of brought me back to Philly.
Okay. And then Philly, you formed another band?
Yeah. Yes, actually. We carried Stone Throne on in Philadelphia until about 2011 or so, 12 maybe.
Cool.
We did a record with Henry Hirsch, which actually that came out in 2011.
Henry Hirsch is...
He's the producer for Lenny Kravitz.
Okay.
Our guitarist knew his assistant, and it was awesome. He really whipped us into shape as far as musicianship and learning how to play. It was great.
So that's more background that gives you more fuel and basis for, performance and also arrangement. We can jump around a little bit because there's songs that we find on Spotify and from your catalog are really polished.
Oh, thanks.
You're super sharp, and it just sounds like everything is intentional, and that only comes from someone who knows what they're doing. Am I kind of
thanks. I mean,
track? Yeah.
Thanks. Like, it takes me a while to write music. I mean, I think it's always. I shouldn't say music, but the songs take a while because the lyrics take a while. Okay. I don't consider myself a great lyricist by any measure, although I'm a lot more proud of the words that I'm writing now than I was. It's a learning curve for sure.
What happened with COVID? What did that do to you?
Well,
because I want to get to the one thing that's to me is a mystery.
Yeah.
And it's like, how come we're not seeing you perform more often?
Okay.
Right? Because I was, again, like I said, I was blown away. And I think you also are going to be performing later in the summer. But it's not like it seems like you have other stuff going on that enables you to sustain, and then you can pick and choose. But to me, it's like, you're kind of a secret. I want that to change. So
part of it is, I'll get to the COVID thing first. So I kind of enjoyed the lockdown because I just wrote songs.
Right.
It felt like the world was on pause, so I was just like, okay, this is a great space for me to kind of just like write music. And I wrote so many songs. Like I only released 10 of them in 2023, but I wrote a lot of music, and I recorded a lot of that music too. Okay. So that was a lot of fun. As far as like not gigging under my solo stuff as much. Well, I do gig. I do a lot of more solo acoustic stuff. That's kind of how I make a living as a musician. But as far as what you saw on 118 North, I do that not so often to kind of make it a special event so that people will come out to it. And then also because it takes a lot of money as for me as a solo artist to put together a band and promote it, rehearsals and all that. And what I mean is, I write all the parts of my music. Like, I don't just sing and play guitar and write the words. The drums, bass, any keyboards that happen, vocal parts, everything. So, I hire guys to learn all that stuff, and my belief is that I should pay my musicians at rehearsal to learn all this stuff. So it takes a lot of money to really, and time to really have them practice and put it all together. So really it's twofold. It's just because I want to make it a special event, and two, because it costs a lot of money to do that as well.
That's good to know. I mean, the listening audience, you guys, it's hard to understand what goes behind the performance, not just from what's on stage, but what led to get there in the first place.
Right.
And the belief is, hey, these guys are getting paid. They're getting pretty, they got to be getting paid something pretty good, right? It's like, not so much.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's usually a loss. I mean,
okay.
Even the 118 North, there was a little to me, but like even then, you're always dealing with the house too. That they have a production fee as well. And
right. So you're making a living as an artist. Is it your full-time living, or
yes,
you're doing multiple
actually.
other things
no,
too?
it is.
You're full-time.
Full-time musician. So I also give guitar lessons too.
Okay. Yeah. So that's part of it. Your solo acoustic stuff. How does that come about? Do you have a booking company, or you just have connections? And
I used to do it by myself. I used to just literally call places until I hit a wall, because it was like, well, we book through an agency, and then there was a trend where we booked through it's the same name kept coming up. So then I just contacted the agency at one point and had them start doing maybe 40% of my calendar, and then now it's just 100% of my calendar, because it frees me up to actually write and record and do things like schedule rehearsals and things like that with the band, and come up with merch, and
right.
it's all DIY from my end. I think the great thing about being a solo artist is that you kind of get to make the decisions all yourself, but it's also the worst thing, because it's all these little decisions. Like, do you like the red on this this design that we're putting on for you? It's just like, oh, all these decisions, all this money, and it's all you. So
you got to be a business person too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So all you aspiring musicians, take those business classes if you see them and you're in college. It'll pay off in the long run, right? It's hard to do. So, appreciate that. Thanks for sharing.
Of course.
What's next? Do you have some gigs coming up later in the summer?
Yes.
Big
well,
one, right?
Music Fest is coming up.
Talk about Music Fest. That's a big event.
I love Music Fest. They've been so kind to me. I think this is my third or fourth year back.
It's around Bethlehem or Easton?
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
Yes.
Not far from Philadelphia, kids. It's like 60 minutes, not even. Make the trip.
Yeah. And then, so it's August 5th at 4 p.m. at the Town Square stage, and then August 12th at noon at the Lyric Platt stage. I'll be doing solo acoustic on the 12th.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And the one earlier on the 5th?
On the 5th.
Is with your band?
With the full band, yeah.
The full band. Yeah. The full band was at 118. Really tight. Really powerful.
Yeah, they're great musicians too, all those guys.
But they're all playing what you tell them to play. It's all good. Before we wrap up, new music coming?
Yeah, well, that's after August. I'm not I don't have anything scheduled, so I'm. It's been great. I've actually just started writing the next, batch of songs. So,
all right.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So we can find you on Spotify, other platforms, and what's your website?
Yeah. JudahKimMusic.com, and if you just do a Google search, I'm sort of everywhere.
JudahKimMusic.com. Listen to Confetti, like the first song. Highway is one of my favorites. They're all my likes on my Spotify. When you do, you're going to be really happy. Not only did you see this interview, but you're happy to know Judah Kim. Thanks for being on the show, man. We really appreciate it.
So nice.
So I'll make it easy for you. Just go to judahkimmusic.com and you'll find Judah Kim's music right from his site. Before you go, please do us and Judah a huge favor and hit the like, subscribe button and share us and Judah Kim music with your friends. We'll thank and hug each other out later. Appreciating you until next time. I'm Bob Mack. Thanks for watching.